Welcome in everybody to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. I'm Brad and I'm with my guy Jacob Dunn here. And it's never too early to talk a little bit of fantasy basketball, so that's exactly what we're getting ready to do. Jacob, how you feeling?
Oh man, I'm feeling great, man. I'm super pumped that the NBA finally gave us the regular season schedule. All right, the Christmas slate is looking nice. All right, with the Bucks at Boston, with the Grizzlies at Warriors, and Nuggets at the Suns. And of course, the NBA has got to keep that tradition of the Knicks playing on Christmas. All right, the Knicks playing on Christmas is the equivalent to the Detroit Lions playing on Thanksgiving. All right, it's tradition. So I'm all for Christmas at the Garden.
What do you think? You think we see Donovan Mitchell in a Knicks jersey on Christmas?
I think it happens, but I have heard that the Jazz aren't interested in Julius Randle. There is some sort of hiccup that's going on, but I think it's going to happen because the Knicks have all those draft picks.
I bet they're not interested in Julius Randle because of one of the guys we're going to talk about a little later. But before we get started, we're missing the usual host of TPF's fantasy basketball show, Coach James Lewis, as he's on newborn baby duty. So please send him and his family some love, and he's got content on deck very soon that you all will want to check out. Yes. But without further ado, let's get into our early sleepers and busts by position for the 2022 NBA Fantasy Points Leagues.
All right, so for my pick at point guard, I got a super duper deep sleeper here. All right, Gary Payton II was signed to a point guard needy team in the Blazers, where he will either play alongside Damian Lillard or be the first point guard off the bench. Young Glove averaged 1.4 steals along with 7.1 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 0.6 threes in just over 17 minutes a game last season. All right, the 29-year-old should provide elite steal to go along with solid points, rebounds, and threes in Portland, and is the perfect 9-cat player to round out your team.
For my point guard sleeper, I'm going with Monte Morris of the Washington Wizards. So Morris was traded to the Wizards from Denver alongside Will Barton. He actually played with Kyle Kuzma when he was young, and the two always wanted to play together in the league. I think he's the only true point guard on the Wizards roster right now, and while he won't get a lot of usage with Brad Beal, Kuzma, and Porzingis, he does know how to play with high usage guys as he's done it with Jokic and Murray. I expect him to have a career high in assists, and I expect him to get at least one touch on offense in virtually every possession.
And at shooting guard, I got Anthony Melton, who was traded on draft night to the 76ers, where I think he will have a sizable role off the bench. In 6 games where he played 30 to 39 minutes last season, he averaged 14.5 points, 5.7 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 2.3 threes, and 1.8 steals. And in 45 games with 20 to 29 minutes, he averaged 12.1 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.2 threes, and 1.5 steals. All right, the 24-year-old will be a top 75 stud as a starter or 6th man in Philadelphia.
All right, from sleeper at shooting guard, I'm going with Collin Sexton. So he's been an easy name for people to forget about. He was perpetually on the trade block despite the fact that he improved his statistics every year of his career. He was hurt last year, and Darius Garland broke out, and the Cavs went to the playoffs. But the bottom line is he's healthy right now, and he was a 20-point-per-game scorer. He's not the type of player that takes the back seat, so I expect him to take a lot of Caris LeVert's usage, and Garland will take less shots as a result. Sexton's essentially auditioning for a new team and a new contract next year, so I think you can expect contract year performance.
And at small forward, I got Devin Vassell. Vassell was a huge fantasy winner following the Dejounte Murray trade. All right, in 2 games where he got 40-plus minutes, he averaged 15.5 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 threes, and 2.5 steals. And in 19 games where he got 30 to 39 minutes, he averaged 14.5 points, 5.2 rebounds, 2.5 threes, 2.5 assists, and 1 steal. All right, I think the 21-year-old should get 28 to 35 minutes per game next season and produce at least top 65 numbers.
All right, and for my small forward sleeper, I'm going with Benedict Mathurin. So I was blown away by what I saw from Mathurin this year in Summer League. I didn't see a lot of him in college out of Arizona, so he wasn't really on my radar, but he is right now. He's a natural scorer and incredibly athletic. And we know fantasy sports is all about opportunity, and with Sabonis gone and Halliburton a facilitator before anything else, I think Mathurin could absolutely be the highest scorer on the team Don't be surprised if you see a 25% plus usage rate for Mathurin going forward. It's probably because of his body type and the jersey, but I see a lot of young Paul George in this kid.
And at power forward, I got another pacer for you guys, all right? Jalen Smith. After Smith was acquired by Indiana at the trade deadline, the rookie averaged 14.6 points on 56% field goal shooting, 7.8 boards, 1.3 threes, and 1 block in 24.3 minutes per game. All right, and Indiana has already anointed the 22-year-old as the starting power forward and could easily post top 100 stats this season.
Power forward, I'm going with Mr. Hold Me Back himself. He epitomizes hustle, he does all the dirty work, and this year I think he might actually get some shine. So in Summer League, he was on the precipice of a double-double constantly, and if he learns to control his foul trouble, then I truly think he could average a double-double on the season. He and Jalen Duren look very solid, and I really love what Detroit is building. They have depth and are probably 1 year away from the playoffs, if not this year. Expect Isaiah Stewart to get at least 25 minutes per game and a loaded front court.
And at center, another super duper sleeper that's for sure going to go under the radar in your fantasy leagues. I got Damian Jones. All right, in 5 games with 30 to 39 minutes last season, he averaged 15.6 points, 9 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 2.2 blocks, and 1.2 steals. And in 19 games with 20 to 29 minutes, he averaged 12.1 points, 5.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists, 1.2 blocks, and 0.6 steals. All right, I expect the 7-year-old vet to break out with little competition for center minutes for the Lakers.
For my center sleeper, I'm going with Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz. This is blind faith based on what I saw from Kessler in college. He didn't play in Summer League. He's going to walk into a role devoid of Rudy Gobert and immediately have a chance to get minutes and make an impact. The big kicker for him in a points league is that he averaged 6 stocks in college. That's 5 blocks and 1 steal. That's a monster number, and if you couple that with even average production on the boards and scoring, then he can make a huge difference for your team in a points league. Look out for Walker Kessler.
All right, and I got an honorable mention for you guys, Jared Vanderbilt. All right, just remember his name at the end of your draft. All right, he started for the Timberwolves last season and was a key part in the trade for Rudy Gobert. There is no competition for power forward center minutes in Utah, so he should have the starting role locked up and produce nice rebounds and steals.
You might be able to tell I like the Pistons this year. As my honorable mention, I'm going with Marvin Bagley III. I've never been a Marvin Bagley guy. I didn't like his skill set at Duke, and his lack of playing time kind of validated my biases of him early on in his career. But now he's in Detroit where I'll get a chance to play and prove himself, and you're not going to have to spend high draft capital on him either. He could end up being a late round steal, playing 25 minutes per game, and getting you 15 and 8 per night.
All right, so those were all of our sleepers for this season, and now let's move on to our busts.
All right, so I'll start us off at point guard. So for my bust, I'm going with Dejounte Murray of the Atlanta Hawks. So Jacob, we've talked about this in our group chats, but I'm willing to go on record as the single biggest hater of the trade that brought Murray to Atlanta. I understand what he brings defensively and the need for an additional ball handler for the Hawks, but Murray is a high usage player and so is Trae Young. It's going to be incredibly difficult to navigate, and I'm not sure Murray or Trae is a good off-ball player. Trae Young's ability to get into the lane and draw fouls or get hot from 3 is what makes him scary. If he's just hanging out on the perimeter because Murray has the ball, then teams will prefer him to shoot. His 3-point percentage actually isn't elite either, despite us watching him shoot from the logo on SportsCenter. I think the Hawks got worse, and people drafting Murray are going to see a stat regression from what we saw in San Antonio last year.
And for my point guard bust, I'm going with Malcolm Brogdon. All right, over his last 3 years in Indiana, Brogdon has only played in 64% of games. Okay, he's great when he's out there, and there's optimism that he will be more efficient on a better Boston Celtics team. But I am not wasting a top draft pick on a guy who has only played 64% of NBA regular season games over the past 3 years. Pass.
For my shooting guard bust, I'm going with Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets. He hasn't played in a year. People are excited for him to come back. Jokic is excited he won't have to do everything, and I'm excited to watch a new look Denver team. But from a fantasy perspective, he's going to be eased in, and I'd imagine there's going to be some reintegration necessary as Michael Porter Jr., will also be returning from his back injury. On top of that, Bruce Brown is now added into the mix, and he's one of my favorite do-everything players. So a recovering Murray is going to have to figure out his role on the team. So I'll be pumping the brakes on Jamal Murray this season.
And for my shooting guard, I got Kevin Porter Jr. To be honest, this was more of a gut call, but I think that Jalen Green takes a step forward in his second year and takes more usage away from Porter Jr. That and the addition of Jabari Smith and expected growth of Alperen Sengun, I don't think that Kevin Porter Jr. will have enough usage left over to be worth a mid-round pick. His fantasy value came from extreme usage with no other talent around him. But now that the Rockets are building something and building something nice, I think Kevin Porter takes a step back.
So for my small forward bust, I'm going to have to go with Caris LeVert of the Cleveland Cavs. Yeah, this is basically a continuation from my Collin Sexton take. If Collin Sexton is successful, there's likely to be a loser at the end of that transaction, and I think that's likely to be Caris LeVert. His NBA career has been one of opportunity. He was on a terrible Nets team and was able to take advantage of that green light to show he was a capable scorer in this league. And now that he's on a winning team, he's shown that he can be a solid on-ball defender and give you a semi-efficient 20 points a game if you need it. Now I think with Sexton back, they're going to need that defense way more than they're going to need the 20 points, so his role is likely to change.
And for my small forward, I have Brandon Ingram. All right, look, I like Brandon Ingram, and I like his game, and the growth that I've seen from when he was traded from LA to the Pelicans has been incredible. But we already saw his numbers dip when CJ McCollum was traded over to the Pelicans at the trade deadline. Plus, the return of Zion Williamson is going to take a lot of usage away from him. So I am not comfortable spending an early round pick on Ingram. All right, if he falls in the mid rounds, that's great, but I'm not going to reach for him.
For my power forward bust, I'm going to have to go with Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic. So I just don't know what he's going to look like. I don't know what his minutes allotment will be. I don't know if he gets along with his teammates, as it's been rumored he rubs some of them the wrong way. I don't know if the Magic are looking to get off of his contract, if they've added some front court depth since signing him. There are just too many questions for me. I'm completely out on Isaac, even though I know what he's capable of.
And for my power forward, I got Harrison Barnes. All right, Barnes is as safe as they come in 9-cat leagues. Just a stabilizing presence in the middle of your lineup. But there are a few reasons why I'm not touching him in drafts. All right, he just turned 30, so he's most likely on the downhill of his career. And the Sacramento Kings just took Keegan Murray, rookie out of Iowa, with their 4th pick in the NBA draft. Whatever usage Barnes did have is now gone, in my opinion. It's not completely gone, but it's not enough to spend a mid-round pick on someone who is barely going to touch the ball with Keegan Murray, Sabonis, and De'Aaron Fox there.
Jacob, you mentioned him earlier, but he's made it onto my list as a bust at center. This is essentially a bust for me more than anyone else. I was president of the Sengun fan club and thought he was going to be Rookie of the Year last year, but Christian Wood was getting all the playing time, which relegated Sengun to the bench. Now that Wood is gone, it could have been Sengun's time to shine. The Rockets drafted Jabari Smith and Tari Eason, 2 front court players who look good enough to probably keep Sengun on the bench. He's still young, so I'm not worried about his career or anything. It's hard for me to have a positive outlook on Sengun for fantasy this year.
And for my center bust, I'm going with Wendell Carter Jr. All right, number 1 pick, Paolo Banchero's presence is going to be a knock to the usage he had last year. All right, the Magic also might be getting back Jonathan Isaac, who mentioned earlier, either at the start of the season or shortly after, which will take away even more usage. All right, and I also think that Markelle Fultz will take a step forward, so I'm not drafting Carter as anything more than a decent shot blocker and rebounder, which I can get similar guys with his skill set and opportunity in the later rounds.
All right, so that'll do it for the first edition of our Sleepers and Busts this year. This is the first of many. We're going to be talking fantasy basketball all season. You're going to get to know myself. You're going to get to know Jacob Dunn and also Coach James Lewis a lot over the season. Make sure to hop in our Discord. We're always talking in there. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. And make sure to comment on this video if you agree or disagree with any of our takes. We'd love to go back and forth with you on that. Until next time, I'm Brad. This is Jacob. Peace.
Cheers.